Wait. Let's stop. If lowering estrogen, right, is what's supposed to help libido, erection, sexual function for guys that are on TRT that have extra estrogen, which is causing a muting of those things, then how is it the case that if you take something, a drug that lowers estrogen and it destroys your libido and makes all that stuff worse? It's like, is it the case that estrogen needs to be lowered? Look, for some guys, AIs, okay, in the context of a TRT protocol, fix everything. Man, they get their sexual function back, their erections are rock hard, they get morning wood, nocturnal wood, like their libido turns back on, everything's great. But for other guys, it ruins the sex stuff, it ruins their mood, ruins their energy, causes joint pain, and it makes them think, well, I must not need to lower estrogen. But there actually is another explanation for why this happens. And in this video, I'm going to lay out an argument that is the resolution of your confusion on this matter. So sit tight, grab a beer, strap in. Let's get into it. All right, before we start the video, look, Cortex Labs is simply a TRT guidance, sexual dysfunction resolution, and performance optimization company. You got a range of different products ranging from mastering testosterone cypionate. If you can't dial in on this ester, especially regarding the sex stuff, get this course. I built that for that. It's an instant download. You can get it in under a minute, livecortex.com. If you need to hire me for TRT coaching, this is what I do. I've seen men in every different scenario, whether it's PFS, TRT alone causing erection, libido issues, just taking people out of these holes where the sex stuff isn't good and resolving those problems. You can hire me in under a minute for any packages that we have on our website at livecortex.com. Right off the bat, spoiler alert, it is actually estrogen. Yeah, it is actually estrogen that you need to lower to resolve sexual function issues that are on TRT. I think a lot of people convolute and complicate how to dial in on TRT, right? Because they have high estrogen, they're on a higher dose of testosterone, they take an AI, some problem happens, the sexual function gets worse, and they go, yeah, it's not estrogen, it must be something else. Is it my AR? Do I need proviron? Do I need more DHT? Is it a DHT derivative that I need? Is it the neurosteroids? Like, is it strictly HCG? Like, the number one cause of a lack of sexual function on HRT, TRT for men, is just estrogen. But it can confuse people when you take a pill to lower estrogen and you therefore lower estrogen, and even on the bloods it's like at a reasonable place, 25 35 picograms per milliliter, and then still sexual function is not where you need it to be, and sometimes it's actually worse. And I think here's a couple like case in points and like topics of confusion. Like, this is why people are confused, because this happens to them. Has taking an AI, or an anastrozole in this case, like the most common aromatase inhibitor, otherwise known as Arimidex, killed your libido? If so, what did you do to get it back besides getting off of the stuff? Guy in the comment section, too much AI kills everything for me. Kills my boners, kills my energy, kills my mood, kills my joints, on and on and on. Low estrogen gives me this unrelenting general anxiety, and it's god awful. Here's another one, like, of one of these people. Yes, absolutely. I can't take any AI. Anastrozole or Aromatase definitely kills libido. In all honesty, the higher my estrogen, the higher my libido, but you get too high, you get high libido and no boners. If I even take 0.25 of anastrozole, it would kill my libido and make my joints ache. Another guy, Dim is plenty good for me, and anastrozole makes me feel like shit. Last one, yes, for 2 weeks straight. So this guy took an AI, and for 2 weeks straight, it felt like I had no penis. It will heal back if you stop now. So you would read that stuff and it would lead you to believe like you don't need to manage estrogen at all, and taking AIs to lower estrogen is just going to make your libido worse, and you'd be like, I don't know what to do, because where I am right now at 45 50 picograms per milliliter estradiol, like, I can't climax, my erections are piss poor, like Cialis doesn't work all that well, but I take some anastrozole and it makes everything worse. Like, what the fuck's going on? Well, here's the confusing part, because here's the other side of the spectrum. Low sex drive and erection problems both improved after taking 0.25 milligrams of Arimidex. This indicate the problem is high estradiol. What this guy ended up doing is total test is 1,000. That's phenomenal. He's on 60 milligrams of cypionate every other day, so that is 210 milligrams a week. You lowered it to 55 milligrams, which is, I don't know, 180 or something a week. Took the 0.25 milligrams of anastrozole, and the estradiol went down to 31.3 picograms per milliliter. By the way, that's a beautiful spot to be with estradiol. Here's one. I'm in a similar boat. Mr. Happy is depressed with E2 above the 20. Still trying to find a stable set it and forget it 8x dose or Arimidex dose, even after splitting my shots. Yeah, look, what's happening here is the following. This guy and the guys that took anastrozole and it killed their libido and their sexual function got a shock to the system in terms of lowering estradiol. right? So when that happens, because a drug comes and inhibits enzymes, aromatase enzymes, there for these non-AI responders, people that don't respond well to aromatase inhibitors, which are never going to be able to take aromatase inhibitors, with the exception maybe very, very mild low doses of aromacin, it disrupts the homeostasis of estradiol so much at the tissue level for a brief period. It's usually within the effective half-life of the drug, so 48 to 50 something hours when we're talking about an astrazole. And so in that period, libido goes to shit, right? There's no penile nitric oxide. The aromatase action in the brain, which you do need for the hypothalamus and limbic system to be regulated in terms of libido, is shut down temporarily. And then the brain, right? The brain and the sexual system as a whole, even probably in the testes, certainly in the penis, is confused, right? It's in a shortage of estradiol. It's in a panic mode to try to regulate, and it doesn't regulate the amount of estrogen at the tissues right away. That could take 2 days. It could take 3 days. It could take 4. You're going to see these weird situations where you take an AI, things get worse, but then at like day 3 or day 4, kind of on the rebound, you hit a sweet little window where you're waking up with erections, you're horny, and everything works really, really well. What's going on there? Well, what's happening there is you regulated, right? It crashed, your body panicked, the distribution of estrogen at the tissues wasn't even. Some of these tissues were actually just starved of estrogen via like no aromatase action, converting test to estrogen in those tissues. But then, once the AI's half-life wears off, there's a little bit of it still inhibiting aromatase, estrogen's coming back up. You hit your sweet spot, you're in your window, and everything functions good. And that still leaves people confused. Wait a minute, I took AI, it caused some sort of muting in sexual function, but then everything came back and it was wonderful. Yeah, you just hit your sweet spot, and then the enzymes weren't completely inhibited, and you were, firing estradiol, in a way that just works well for your body. And that's kind of the case in point with these people, like the other people where they take AIs and everything's good. What happens here? What happens here is like their body doesn't freak out, right? It evenly distributes the estradiol at the tissues, and no tissues are even temporarily starved of estrogen. It just kind of regulates the right way. In other words, they respond to AIs favorably. The AIs actually work the way that they're intended to, with this idea that you're on TRT and estrogen goes up and you take something to manage estrogen and then you're good. These people are able to get in the Goldilocks zone. It's all working out the way that it's supposed to work out for them. But here's the final part of the perplexing situation at hand. People in these situations that can't deal with aromatase inhibitors or DHT derivatives like Primo or Masteron, because in some sense they kind of work pretty similarly, albeit not as powerfully. Like in those situations, people will lower their testosterone dose from 175 to 115 milligrams a week, and over the course of 2 weeks, their erections and their libido comes back. Then, as they let it sit, because like long ester takes some time to filter out of the system, estradiol lags behind, still high, but takes a while to get down to its set point, this lower set point. Like then, as it's going down there, and as it goes down to that new lower set point, well, people get their sexual function back. How is it that they took an AI and they got the estradiol right around the range that it ended up in if they just lowered their dose to 115 milligrams, but while with the AI, sexual function was shit. While without the AI, naturally lowering estradiol, sexual function was great. The answer lies in the crux of the problem that I described. The only way for AI non-responders to maintain sexual function when estrogen lowers is for estrogen to lower really slowly. Yep. That's the answer, because that's what happens when you lower your testosterone dose and you have less aromatizable androgen. It's as the estrogen lowers, the system gets to regulate as that's happening, rather than just being shocked by the use of Arimidex. It has happened to me. It has happened to many of my clients, and it happens to those that report this stuff on the web. I've taken AIs and gotten my estradiol to 20. And in that case, especially with pretty high tests, my libido at 20 picograms per milliliter estradiol was shit. But when I've run experiments in the past of going down to 70 milligrams, which ultimately wasn't good for my energy or anything else, but was phenomenal for sexual function, I ended up clocking at like 15 picograms per milliliter of estradiol, and I was a walking erection and was horny 24/7. So, I mean, that's a case in point, right? But my estrogen at that point had lowered very, very naturally down to a low set point. I'm fine at 15 picograms per milliliter of estradiol in terms of sexual function. The rest of my body doesn't feel particularly good. Like water retention is nil. I'm just like a piss machine. But the sexual function is fine. But if I take an AI and get it down there, I lose everything. It's just because of the rate at which estrogen lowers. So the perfect solution would in fact be an aromatase inhibitor that works really, really slowly and kind of operates kind of like natural estrogen reduction, which is slow and also regulated at the tissues. But here's the fucking problem. We don't have that. Arimidex, Aromacin, Aromacin's better, but Arimidex, it just kills everything really quickly and causes this dilemma for guys on TRT. So ultimately, one of the potential solutions to this problem would be the absolute lowest dose of Aromacin that you can take. Yeah, you might even have to take a 12.5 milligram tablet, split that in half, so you get 6.25, and then split that in half, and you get 3.125 or whatever that ends up being, and then take that 3.125 and split that in half, and then just dose that once a week. There, you get really, really slow but continuous reduction in estrogen, and it doesn't shock the system for some people that might want to try this as significantly as higher doses of Aromacin, and obviously of any dose of Arimidex. Yes, you can use diindolylmethane and you can use calcium D-glucarate and some of these other compounds that might lower estrogen, but they don't work for everybody either. As I've been preaching and as I've learned in coaching, if you can't make any of that stuff work, I mean, you run through Primobolan, you run through Masteron, you run through every AI, you try the microest doses. It's going to take you a lot of time to determine, am I a non-responder to aromatase inhibitors because of this problem of non-tissue regulation of estrogen? Then at that point, your only option, after you've exhausted all those options, is just to lower the test dose. Again, there's a subset of individuals that are going to have to find the lowest possible test dose below which they start feeling like shit, but above which it causes sexual function issues because of E2. And usually, as I said, on the very low end, that's 85 milligrams a week, to the high end, 120 milligrams a week, even for people that don't aromatize a whole lot. So regardless of what you do, whether you just lower the test dose within that range and find your sweet spot, or you try micro dosing Aromacin and just kind of multiple weeks and multiple iterations of trying the lowest dose as possible and seeing if you regulate. In the end, all I wanted to do was answer the question, why do AIs destroy libido and stuff for some if estrogen needs to be lowered? And does estrogen need to be lowered? The answer is uneven distribution at the tissues, a temporary panic mode, and unregulated distribution of estrogen at the tissues from inhibited aromatase enzymes. And in terms of sexual function, I'll always come back to this because I just see the real data. I'm not driven by ideology of internet YouTubers that talk about TRT, that have a dog in the fight and are pro-estrogen by highlighting all of the things that estrogen does that are good. The answer to down sexual function on TRT, if you're using HCG, which dramatically helps, as well as DHEA, which dramatically helps, but can all be canceled out by estrogen. And that's the answer. Yes, the answer is you need to lower estrogen, but it needs to happen not in a forceful, rapid manner, and it needs to happen in a much more natural, regulated manner. If you can figure that out, my friends, you're dialed in on TRT in terms of the sex stuff. All right, as I said in the beginning, look, if you're having a hard time doing this or wanting to dial in on whatever, whether it's a TRT with an AI, without an AI, DHT derivative, DHT itself, just hire me. I mean, this is what I do. I've seen every one of these situations more than 10 times. Probably more than 20 times. Also, for serious sexual dysfunction like post-finasteride syndrome, I've got a large degree of history and a breadth of experience in resolving that. It is not that difficult once you understand how to resolve it. So regarding TRT or sexual dysfunction of any type, sexual dysfunction on TRT, just hire me. I've got a one-off call, just a consultation. And for long-standing sexual dysfunction, longer one-on-one packages. You're working with me one-on-one. We're communicating every other day or every third day. I'm managing everything for you and you get better. Hire me for any of that stuff in under a minute. Literally takes about a minute at livecortex.com. For those of you trying to go at this alone, regarding testosterone cypionate, I created an entire course on it. Just get the course, download it, watch the video, run through the protocols, you'll be dialed in. We go through every possible option on how to do this, with the overarching objective of mastering testosterone cypionate and running through these protocols being restoration of the sex stuff, libido and erections on testosterone cypionate. All in this course. You can buy it instantly and download it now. livecortex.com or down the description. This has been the, all right, this has been the this is the, give me this. The video's over. Been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you, boys. Do me 2 favors, would you? Like the video. Makes a huge difference. Puts our content out to people who need to see it. Also, become a subscriber. We're almost 33,000 subscribers strong and growing, and I'd love to have you a part of this group. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Much more content coming soon. Live stream coming on the weekend. Missed it last weekend. There was a lot going on for me. Hope you're enjoying the summer. Let's enjoy more. Talk to you boys in the next one.